chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through.
We have.
Dangerous times, don't fly too high.
Saw a little bit of there.
Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world and keep the sky on your mind.
As always, everything we discuss is for entertainment and is speculation. Please like and subscribe, and definitely join our discussion in the comments. If you're ready, let's get into it. Welcome back to Typically Unique. I'm Kim Aponte, and I'm here with my husband, Carlos.
Hello. And boy, we've been gone for a while.
We've been gone for a little bit. Sorry
Yes.
about that.
But it's been a while, but we're back, and we've been watching everything that's been going on. So it's not that we've been completely disconnected, but yeah, the holidays happened. We got 5-6 feet of snow here at one point. Kimmy was
I did record that.
Yeah, Kimmy was doing some lives on our epic snowfall in, I don't know, late November. Then the holidays and our local high school in the district that Kim teaches, because of all the snow, the roof
damage.
Yeah, we had roof damage, which almost damaged the server to the entire district. And
It was crazy for a little bit.
Yeah, so she had to do like some extra special stuff during that time, and then the holidays and the new year, and then lifestyle changes and everything else that's going on. So we but with the hearings coming up, we've been still following things, and we wanted to kind of give our perspective because there's a lot that we've been personally disagreeing with behind the scenes.
As soon as the hearing started last week and we started going at it, and I was sharing that in some of the lives I was in, and some of you were like, go live, we want to hear it live. So we saved a lot of it for tonight. But before we start, I was down here setting up. I didn't even tell Carlos this yet. I was down here setting up and trying to get a few different pieces of equipment together. I literally had a monitor in my hand, and I tripped over all the wires that we have down here, and I bit it and I cannot believe, I'm waiting tomorrow to see the bruise on my hip because my knee hurts, my hip hurts.
Oh no. Well,
my brain does not think I am old, but my body reminds me often. And so I cannot believe the computer monitor I was holding did not crack or break, because that's probably the first thing I let go of.
I guess to give some perspective, first of all, our studio's in the basement.
Yeah.
And I was upstairs.
Yeah, like 3 stories,
yeah.
2 stories away.
So I didn't hear that. I'm sorry to hear that happened. But did you scream out?
No, I just said a few choice words.
Well, see, there's a story behind Kim when she gets hurt that I tell people. Yeah. So Kim will walk, maybe hit her elbow on something, and she'll scream bloody murder and ask me, why didn't you run down here and check on me? And I'm like, well, because you were screaming real loud for that attention. So I figured, she's okay. She just wants someone to come and see if she's all right. I know when Kim gets really hurt is when she says nothing.
Yeah, there's been a couple times when I was really hurt and I'm silent.
You're silent. So there was one time this chair, which we shouldn't have been using, collapsed. And it was like right in front of me.
Right at the dinner table.
Right at the dinner table.
Gave out.
And I was like, and she said nothing. And she just had this look on her face like, I'm assessing every bone in my body right now to see if any one of those broke. And I knew I rushed over there. I think I scooped her up. I grabbed ice from every place I could find, just to make sure that she was okay. Because I know when she doesn't make a sound, she's really hurt. So
yeah, I think I did take a second. I'm okay. I
Yeah,
just got
good.
banged up a little bit.
good. I didn't know
Things
that.
we do to set up for these.
Lordy.
So I'm checking the chat. I see Ro, hello, and Lori and Twiz, and I saw Kane earlier. Hey, everybody. So we're gonna start off with restating what our positions
No.
have been, right?
Okay. Sure.
With
I'm just trying to make it dramatic, honey. Don't
Okay.
don't let my expressions throw you off, Eddie. I'm just trying to add some
and
intrigue.
before we start, Twiz is already saying in the comments, remember what he told you.
Okay.
I got your back.
Yeah. I'm still considering.
Do you want to start or do you want?
Well, sure. I mean, it's no secret that I am a guilter, right? I think Brian Koberger is guilty, and there's just too much circumstantial, I'll even call it circumstantial evidence that I haven't been able to get pulled off of yet. And I think these hearings that we're hearing now I think Kim's position is, oh, hey, look at these hearings, this is disproving your theory. I think it's solidifying it for me more than taking me off that position. And I'll explain that in a little bit later.
That's
but
what we're here to talk about.
Yes, but that's my position. I believe Brian Koberger is guilty.
Yep, and I'm the opposite. I think that they rushed to get a suspect and that they have not shown me yet any definitive evidence that does not have some kind of secrecy or shadiness behind it. So until things get vetted out completely to know that it's verifiable and justly obtained evidence, I just think everything is too suspicious. So I'm leaning towards it doesn't look like they have the right guy.
So the first thing you said, the very first thing was they rushed to get a suspect. So everything is relative, right? If something takes a month, that could be a rush to somebody. If something takes 2 months, that could be a rush, to some people.
Maybe I should have said they felt rushed to get a suspect, like a lot of pressure, right? So they had a lot of, because school, right before it happened, the kids were leaving for Thanksgiving break. So that kind of gave them that like relief, right? Like, okay, the kids can get out of here safely for a while.
Right.
And then, but oh boy, they're coming back the semester. Because then between Thanksgiving and New Year's, when you're in college, that's only a few weeks of classes. So I think they let them go online and stuff if they wanted to. But then they were going to come back after that winter break. And that's when I think the pressure really was on to get somebody.
For sure. And I think, there's pressure, but I don't think that the evidence was necessarily, I don't think it changed the timeline so much, right? Because you're rushed, it doesn't mean that we have the wrong person. It means we need to expedite this test, or we need to put more manpower behind this. It doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong.
It doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't either.
Right.
I think this is a good segue into what this hearing was about last week. Is the defense wanted to talk about suppressing the evidence. And there was for the Franks hearing.
But there were some closed portions of this too, though, right? There were some things that we still didn't get to hear.
Oh, right.
So there was something that was closed and then some parts that were open.
So we're all waiting for this hearing because we're like, oh, this is the good one. This is going to be the one. And then I know a lot of you out there did your own live streams, and the live streams that I watched, you guys were on for like 8 hours, 9 hours, because like the first 4 hours were closed. And this was probably Carlos and my first debate because I was mad that the hearing was closed. I just feel that things in our country, we have our three branches of government in our judicial system. Our government is run by the people, right? That's the way it's supposed to be. And I feel like things should be open, and we should be able to present your case, present it to the people, so that we can know that our elected officials, who are elected by the people, are following through and doing things the right way. Let me know in the chat if you agree with that.
And my opposite position of that was, you can't compromise the case. And the people who are going to be sitting in judgment of Brian Kohberger are going to be the jurors. So you can't compromise the case in public. You have to present that to an impartial jury and allow them to, under the guise of the court of law, where certain things can be sent in or added into a trial and some things can't. Some of those things will benefit the defendant, maybe some past history that doesn't come in, and some of the things won't, like the fact that he's a criminology student, right? That could be perceived as maybe a negative. So those are the things that I think having a system that is monitored and judged and ruled is the best place to have, where if someone's gonna, if my life is on the line here, I don't want it on the line for public opinion.
Well, in this case, Brian's been slaughtered over mainstream media. So anything else that could come out would probably only benefit him. Like nothing in support of him has really been talked about on social media or on mainstream media. And the only thing I would think should be closed in a hearing would be minor children having to testify about things, or maybe SA victims, something that is traumatic to the person who's testifying. And again, it's protecting the people. So I don't know if that's where I stand. So I was mad that first 4 hours or however long it was closed. They try to hint at some little things that came out of that. And one of the things that I wanted to ask in the chat is Ann Taylor made a comment while she was giving her statements to the judge. She said she had learned 3 new things. I think she said that about the closed hearing, and I haven't heard anybody speculate on that yet. What do you guys think those things were?
So you started to talk about, and then I took us back to the close and open, but you started talking about suppressing the IGG, which is...
That's what she started with.
Yeah, and you and I had some big debates on this, but what is your position with the IGG evidence? And
so I think I understand how she is laying it out. So they found this DNA on the Nice Sheath snap. They took the sample, they ran it through CODIS, they didn't get a hit, or however, whatever, and then they gave it to Othram Labs. They did, and they have a pretty good reputation. They're like a go-to for this type of stuff. They couldn't get a hit. And I believe they also have access to running it through some of those other sites and things. What we found out in this hearing, Ann Taylor made the statement that once it left Othram to go to the FBI said, give it to us, we'll do it. It was now 2 times the size of a sample than it was when they gave it to them. So they're questioning that. She was questioning that, the sheath is it's a movable object, right? So something that was brought into the house as a movable object, so that creates more of a chance. She kept saying over and over again, you can't leave your house without shedding DNA,
Mhm.
right? So she's hinting at, we're going to be talking about how that DNA could have gotten on the sheath. She didn't want to state her case then, but it's the work. So then once it's at the FBI, whatever they did with it, they will not they say they don't have their work, they won't turn over their work. So if you're gonna, so she wants it suppressed because you're not verifying, like it's coming from, they didn't follow, oh, she said their own policies. So she was implying that they use like a GEDmatch or a 23andMe, and their policies are that they needed a warrant. That's what it was. This goes to the warrants, right? Because that comes up next. So, and back to the PCA. So everything based on the PCA, which they, in their policy, they stated that they should not use those sites. And I wanted to bring this up because I had to take all these classes for a master's degree that I got, because in education, our school board has tons of policies. And so just like the police, just like the FBI, policies come from court cases. Someone got sued, someone sued somebody, and so they're putting in a law that says, here's what the law should be, and then now your organization needs to follow that law, so you need to put in a policy.
Okay, those are two different things, though.
That's where they come from, and she's saying they didn't follow their own policy, and
Policy's not law.
It's not, but policies follow laws, is my point. So you can say it's not a law, but it follows a law. It came from a law. It came from a law. And they were trying to say, oh, it's just a best practice. This is just a best practice.
Policies could be best practice.
I promise you, I bet it came from a law.
It could have, but
I kid kitty.
Legally, policy is not law. I just want to make that distinction.
Okay.
I'm not saying that anything that you just said is incorrect. I'm just saying that a policy is not a law.
I agree.
Okay. All right. So, but
it could be different in law enforcement world. I mean, I'm speaking of, I know in education that's where it comes from, and I would just assume that's overall.
Yeah. No, I understand. You brought up a bunch of stuff that I want to go backwards. Yeah, I want to go backwards, but now the policy and law thing got me so focused on that, I forgot some of the stuff you said earlier. So
start with this. So her first statement, I believe, was that the prosecution did not have warrants for the DNA.
Okay, yeah.
And then that's when she went into the FBI violated their own policy, and the prosecution said, oh, it wasn't any violation.
Right.
Like that.
So I want to go back to the you had mentioned somewhere or something about they didn't have enough DNA, and then all of a sudden the FBI got it, and then they had enough DNA.
Like it doubled in size.
Doubled in size, and you find that what?
Suspicious.
Okay. Now I can't tell you the source, but I remember watching something on TV where labs today can take DNA, and I think we talked about this previously, and build off of everything that they have to get a sample that is large enough to use, right? Didn't we see this? We saw this together.
My memories are.
Yeah, but
my short-term memory is.
So when you say the FBI did or somebody did something suspicious, that this is impossible to do, that they went in what I hear the inference, even though you're not saying it, but what I hear the inference being is, we broke into Koberger's cell while he was sleeping and shaved off some of his skin, took it to a lab, and now doubled the size of the DNA sample. When really this was probably created in the lab from the original sample that they got from the button. So unless I can hear that distinction.
Created from what?
Exactly. So this is what we saw a few months ago, and we had a long debate about. Her memory isn't that good. It's okay though. But we watched a TV show where DNA today is not like the DNA it was in 1992, and that they can, I wouldn't say create, but take the original sample and make it big enough. And we even joked about because I think they said this in the show where they talked about the movie Jurassic Park, where they inserted amphibian DNA. We talked about this on one of our lives.
Okay, so like back up, because they can do that to create something like, so it was Jurassic Park we were talking about, or we related it to Jurassic Park at the time.
Jurassic Park.
So if you're going to fill in, because we were arguing about this back then
Not
too.
filling in though, but that was a Jurassic Park thing, talked about the filling in. That's what I'm using to.
Okay, so then what did the human lab do? How do they make it bigger?
Because you got all these markers and they're creating, they're just regenerating the markers, right?
But they would be the same ones that they have. There would be nothing new.
Exactly. So now just make it big enough, right? It's like, I can't think of anything else, but you know, it's cloning. It's cloning almost the same thing.
But it's right.
And I'm not making this up. This came from a show that I wish I could cite it, you know, and I'll look later, but I'm not the researcher.
But we're laymen over here
Yeah.
discussing this, but I'm thinking like, so you have a DNA marker,
Yeah.
you know, that says like, oh, you have blue eyes, you know, or whatever that thing is. If you're just duplicating that over and over again, it's still just saying you have blue eyes.
Right.
You're not.
But now
you're
it's
not
bigger,
finding,
now able to use that. Now it's bigger.
I don't understand bigger. It's
well, you've just been railing about smaller. So you don't understand smaller?
But I'm talking about size as in as an amount. So not size as in mass, like
Right.
an amount.
Yes.
So let's say they have 15 markers.
Right.
They send it back to the FBI with 30 markers. Where do those 15 other markers come from? You cannot just guess like heritage or height or, you know, all those. I'm making up, you know, layman's things, and that's what it seems like. It's the amount, not the size, so they could see it better. Is that what you're thinking?
No,
like, they can see it better.
No, I again, I'm a layman. It was a show. We watched it. We had a long debate about it. You know, and I guess what I'm saying is, when you mention that, how did it get bigger? So you're using these terms that I'm trying to use with you. How did that sample get bigger? All I'm saying is we watched a show where they talked about how DNA today can be generated off of a small sample to make it big enough to, you know, and again, I don't know what that is, but you know.
So then again, that would be Ann Taylor's concern with using a science that is not, it needs to be vetted, right? It needs to be a verifiable, replicable, legal tool that was used. And maybe that's why they're keeping it secret. Maybe it's some brand new finagled thing. But I hate the secrecy. I think I even looked up, can the FBI testify in court? And absolutely they can. There's that's part of what they do. If they worked on a crime, on a case, and they did work, they go to court and they testify on what they did. And so I don't understand why all of this is hidden on their end of it. And it's with everything.
But it's the judge who you know, locked this down, right?
Well, no, he's hearing the case. It's the FBI who's, so like the defense is saying, hey, we want to see how you got to our client, and we know it's through IgG. They know that because of the dates. They know that because of the dates. And so the prosecution says, we don't have that. We don't have it. The FBI has it, and they're not giving it to us.
Right.
So it's up to the judge to say, hey, FBI, get your butt in here show your work.
Right. If that's important, you know, to the defense, and it sounds like it is, But the judge keeps saying in the hearings that I've heard over and over again, are you denying that Kohlberger's DNA was on the sheet? And
He did say that over
and the
over.
defense has not said, we don't think it's his DNA. We just don't like how it got to our client. We're not saying that it's not his. And the judge is like, well, then I don't understand what you're arguing here.
Ann Taylor kind of got pushed by the judge to that point, and that's going to come out at trial. And, you know, she's not going to want to give all of that at a suppression hearing.
Why not? The public should hear it. The public should hear it all. Why not? She should just spew it all out there and get the public behind Brian Kohlberger immediately.
That's not evidence. That's her argument. You don't have to share your arguments. It's strategy, right? Lawyers have strategies.
Okay.
Nobody's over here screaming that the prosecution should give us their strategy. We're just talking about evidence, right? So, all right, let's take a breather and see what we'll come back to Gigi, but I want to see what people are saying.
Yeah.
Is this Jen the Jen? Twiz, is that?
Tell us what you're talking about, Kimberly. Who is the
Jen? Yeah, okay, so Kane had, no, not Kane. Was it Kane or Twiz? Twiz had a live, like a super long live. And I know he fell asleep, and then the chat kind of got taken over. So I don't think it went well.
Oh, okay.
And it looks like we're getting spammed a little bit. So let me see. Do I have any mods in here? Lori's a mod. Lori, are you still in here, Lori? Just keep an eye. Like, I don't mind other opinions. We just don't want, you know, name calling or things like that. The fabricator of BK getting fired. Okay, you're probably responding to each other. It's okay to debate in the chat. Just make sure nothing gets out of control. All right, so yeah, they're debating against themselves.
Good. Is anybody on my side in the chat?
I think Jen is.
Oh, Jen. All right.
No.
All right. Okay. Well, I know you're trying to move off IGG, but I want to stay here a little bit.
No, it was important.
Yeah. One of the things that was, you know, I kept hearing in the hearings was, you know, I want to see the procedures. I want to see who did it. I want, you know, and even from the guilter side of things, okay, I think they should. I don't think that that's something that, who are we protecting in all this? CeCe Moore, and I don't think it was CeCe Moore, but who are we protecting in this? You know, it's from all the shows that I've seen about investigative genealogy, it's part science, you know, where the DNA comes
And
in,
art.
but most of it is art, right? I mean,
Investigation.
yeah, to go through all that to try to get these trees where you can finally find a paternal and maternal, you know, grandfather or great grandmother or something, to get all this, you know, to land on somebody to the closest relation to the person that's DNA is being presented. It's artful, you know. I mean, so.
But in this case, they didn't have a full profile, and that's nobody's doing that because they didn't have a full profile. And then
So that goes to our previous conversation. Can that be created some way? But here's my thing though, and I want to bring in maybe a couple other things and we can touch on them in a little bit. I think if they were hellbent on doing investigative genealogy on 3 unknown male DNA profiles, right?
Uh-huh.
Why did they stop at the sheath, right?
Uh-huh.
They should have done the handrail. They should have done the glove.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I don't know, because, you know, this is closed, right? And all the information isn't out there. I don't know if they tried and failed, and the only one that they got was the sheath. I don't know if they just said, hey, look, this is the sheath to the potential murder weapon at the crime scene. This one's more important. The handrail over here could be, and the glove outside maybe, but let's start here.
Well, there were a couple things that were said in the hearing that make those two pieces of evidence more important, in my opinion. So, and we'll talk about the warrants in a minute. The defense is super critical of Dylan's statements that were used in the affidavit.
Yeah, let's not do that yet, because I want to talk a lot about that.
Well, it's going to go back to this because, okay. So if there's blood on the hand railing,
right?
Okay, but you're saying they were able to take a few microscopic skin cells with partial DNA profiles and get to the guy, but then they have a blood sample that we don't know how good of a sample it was.
Don't know how old the sample was.
Probably, well, that could be the only issue, is if it was like
degraded
blood left before or whatever, but you would think that would have been vetted out. Like, I'm imagining a bloody spot that was left on there. And then the judge also hinted, because the other one was on a glove, not the one that the reporter found out in the driveway, one outside the door. And the judge made a comment that, the perpetrator could have like taken their clothes and gloves off and put them in a bag, which would make you think he dropped one.
Right. Right. But for them to say that there are there was two unknown male DNA samples at the scene, and then one that was attributed to Kohberger, leads me to believe that they did all the testing that they could do to get an unknown DNA sample, because they maybe ran it through CODIS, they ran it through their, whatever, and that person's DNA is not in there, so it's an unidentifiable DNA sample. The sample still exists. And
Ann Taylor didn't make it seem like that. She was.
So how do you know it's male?
No. She didn't make it seem like those samples weren't good enough to test. She said
they already been tested. If you have an unknown DNA.
Yeah, I'm sure there are levels of testing you can do, and you can probably do a basic one that just says male, female. Like, you don't have to do a whole full-blown like genetic DNA.
Wait a minute. See, now you're getting past it. So there were 3 samples. One was identified. All 3 samples were tested, right?
I don't think so, you guys. Is that
how do they know it's male?
Because you can tell from blood if you're male or female. You don't have to go.
Wait a minute. What's your blood type?
But there's more. They can go in and look at other things in your blood. They can tell if I have an infection in my blood. They can like look at things in your blood. I don't know. Am I crazy?
Yeah.
To me, it didn't seem like. So here's how I know this. So Ann Taylor said to this judge that the prosecution, when they were submitting their PCA, probable cause, they intentionally left out these other DNA samples. They did not let the judge who signed, and the judge who signed off on it was long gone before any hearing. It was a female judge. They did not give her a chance to say, oh, you have 3 other samples. Maybe I shouldn't sign off on this probable cause for this guy. Maybe I should tell you to go do more, because judges can do that. Judges can say, go get more evidence. Go get more evidence. And they didn't give her a chance because they withheld that information back. They withheld information back from that.
All right, you're getting into something else that I do want to talk about. Okay, I agree that, all of that wasn't put in the PCA, but we also had this discussion as the hearing was going on. If 100 people committed this crime and you've identified one, you're not going to write a PCA to get that one person off the street? No, keep them on the street until we identify 90 more.
Why didn't you write one for the other 3 people?
Because they're unidentified.
So was he.
No, he wasn't. Wait a minute.
They knew his name when they wrote the PCA?
Yes, Kimberly. We had this conversation the other day. she's okay. It's okay. What
Of
here's
course I know when he wrote PTA.
yeah. So wait a minute. Hold on. Let me tell this story real quick. So we were going back and forth.
It's a type of DNA.
Hold on. Let me tell this story.
Don't make fun of me.
No, let me tell this story. So we were having this exact same conversation 2 days ago, and Kim stood on Mount Rushmore and absolutely said the PCA does not talk about Brian
car.
Kohlberger's DNA.
Oh,
It is
the
only
car.
about the car. And I said, look, I think my memory is pretty good. We have the PCA. I think I remember seeing that we did have the DNA. She's
I
like,
did bring it tonight.
and she stood on top of that mountain and said, there is nothing in that PCA that says anything about DNA or saying that it's Brian Kohlberger. And how could you make that statement? I said, honey, please. I go, look, let me look it up. I'll send it to you. I looked it up. I sent it to her. Last paragraph, nothing but DNA, right?
It was at the
She
end.
saw it. She's like, oh, you sent me a different one. That's the different PCA. I'm like, there's only one that I'm aware of. And she looked at it. She saw it. Now, honey, you're making the same argument that you did a couple days ago. So I just want to say,
You sucked me into it.
no, I'm not. No, I'm trying to
trap.
protect you a couple days ago, and you wanted to climb up Mount Rushmore again. But anyway, I think the point of that is,
See, Kane knows what I'm saying because it's confusion. It's confusing because all we talk about mostly when we talk about the PCA is the car, right?
100%.
And there is big confusion. So I don't feel so bad about being confused when we talk about this because it's like chicken and egg. What came first? And it was was it the car or was it the IgG? And I think Ann Taylor was saying loud and clear today that it was the IgG that came first.
Yep.
Okay.
So I think so when we go back to, why didn't they show that other evidence? Which is, I want to talk about that because I agree with the Kohlberger side that, that was kind of milling around, but I don't think law enforcement went down that path. They got maybe short-sighted, which we've seen a lot of cases. But my point to you was the other day, if we can identify one of the people that was involved in this atrocity, I am not on the Kohlberger side of things to say, well, let's not arrest them until we get everybody involved. I don't care if there's 20 co-conspirators. If you have the identity of one, let's get that person off the street. These were 4 kids who were murdered by knife in their house. And we're going to say, let's not arrest them until we find out what the glove means and the handrail means. No, get that person off the street.
That's not true. There's a lot of cases where they wait till they have enough evidence because you want it to stick.
DNA
they were watching him.
on the murder weapon sheath is
like
enough evidence to bring somebody in custody.
There's just nothing else supporting it.
Doesn't matter. DNA.
Nothing else.
Bring that person in. Let's have a conversation.
So let's talk about this. So comparing DNA. What is more, I don't want to say important, relevant. What's more relevant? DNA, well, it's on the sheath that holds the weapon, so that makes it super relevant. But that's a movable object that could have been brought into the house. So the defense was definitely hinting to the judge that they're gonna battle how that DNA got on there. Or a stationary hand railing attached to the stairs in the house, and there's blood on there.
Yeah.
Because the glove is also movable.
I usually don't read the chat, but I noticed something that Kane wrote. Why the need to lie to arrest him? So I'm curious what that means and what is the lie that is referenced. So
we'll keep talking. Kane, you want to write a comment?
Why the need to lie to arrest him? Yeah. So from what I understood in the PCA, there were some. There were good, very good. Look at that. First time. All right. I think there was stuff in the PCA that's questionable, right? There's early on, you're trying to gather enough stuff to get this person that you think is culpable, off the street, right? Because like you said, it's a college town, people are scared, they're being rushed. Was everything in there, legit, 100% perfect, to the T? I don't know, maybe they thought at the time and, maybe later no, but I'm just curious what the lie was.
So they lied about the WSU people had the car in November, right? Like around the 26th, somewhere around there, right? But they didn't communicate it to, supposedly Moscow PD is saying, we didn't know that until December.
Yeah, they communicated it, but they didn't think it was a connection.
In court, they said they didn't know.
No,
They did not communicate until December, I think 20th. December 20th, I think was the date. 20th or 23rd. That they finally communicated about it.
Right, but they had notified them in early November.
I don't think so.
We had a discussion about this in a podcast that we did about.
All right, in the chat,
in October.
Did they notify?
Yeah, because what happened wasn't it somebody like found it afterwards and said, oh, hey, we got this connection in Washington to this Elantra.
No, I don't think so. No, because Payne has been on the stand. Payne and Mowry were on the stand on Friday, and I did watch that hearing, but I haven't studied it to speak a lot about it for tonight.
Mm-hmm.
There was a whole lot of, I don't know, I don't recall, I don't remember, I don't know. Well, that looks familiar. Maybe. You're the lead investigator. You should know that case by the back of your hand, right? Just like I'm supposed to know all my students by the back of my hand, all their strengths and weaknesses. And you get up there and say, I don't know. So a lie would be more like withholding the evidence, or they're lying about the DNA, how they got to him. We don't know. They're hiding it for sure, how they got to him. Oh, and I wanted to go back to that because the judge asked Ann Taylor if he kept saying, you're not claiming that your client submitted his own DNA into 23andMe or into GEDmatch. He asked that a few times, you're not claiming that, right? Because if they had a sample of Brian's DNA and they look in 23andMe and run a match and it's in there,
mm-hmm.
because of his own doing, because this whole thing was a privacy. She's bringing up the privacy issue, the Fourth Amendment.
Right, I want to get into that.
And the judge kept saying, you don't have any privacy because it's his ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way it would be his own privacy if it was his own DNA in there. And she didn't say that it was. She didn't say that he had done it.
All right, well, it looks like we want to move off this, so let me get my final thoughts on this IGG stuff, and then we can go off it to whatever direction, because we're not talking about this specific thing, and trying to, take it for what it is. It's a critical piece of evidence that was brought to a judge. The judge signed off on it and said, if you have a DNA sample on a murder weapon cover, or sheath, next to a body, that seems pretty important. Yes, I want you guys to go get that person off the street and see if we can't find out if they're involved some way or not. So that to me is plain and simple. If that was in my house, I would want them getting that person. Hey, we got a DNA off of, the gun holster of, the person who came in and shot up your family, but we're not going to arrest them just quite yet because we don't know exactly, I'd be like, no. Get them.
So here's where everybody agrees with you, Kurt. We agree with you until it's time to go to court and say, okay, show us what you did.
Okay.
No. Okay, now why? Why? Explain that. Why aren't you showing what you did?
Okay. So I think I heard in court that the prosecution is saying.
Sorry if I get loud.
No, it's good. It's passion, baby. It's passion. I like it. I think what they're saying is, hey, how did you get to my client? Show us the work that you did for the IGG to get to our client. Doesn't matter that it's true and it's correct. I want to see how you did it because I don't think you're following the right policies or the protocols. And you're supposed to sit under a 70-watt bulb instead of a 100-watt bulb when doing this, and I'm going to challenge this in court. To me, that's all this legal semantics. What the prosecution is saying, hey, I'll turn it over. As soon as the FBI gives it to me, I'm giving it to you. I've heard them say that 100 times. And all I keep hearing about is Santa Claus ain't giving this stuff up, and
As soon as what happens, I'll give it over? What'd you say?
as soon as the FBI gives me all that information, I'll turn it over to you.
That's what I said. Why isn't the FBI?
No, you're not saying the FBI. You're saying, why isn't the prosecution?
No, I've been saying that up until
okay.
this hearing,
Okay.
But now,
Yeah,
that's the whole.
So we agree. So they're like, hey, we've turned over everything that we got. We're not getting it from them. If you want to go to the FBI and, make some ruling for them to turn it over, we're okay with that. We're not saying not to do that, right? Okay. So there's no argument here about that. All right.
So let me chat. I wrote down some questions earlier as I was listening to the hearing. Okay, so I saw some of you making comments about Dylan's statement in the chat. So Ann Taylor was saying that, they should not have relied on Dylan in the PCA because her statement said information that the prosecution is saying is not accurate. The prosecution is saying all 4 were killed in their beds. Her statement includes Dylan seeing one of the victims running up and down the steps. I have my opinions about that, who I think it might be, or what it makes me think about the situation. But do you think to me, it seemed like Ann Taylor, she's using Dylan to discredit the PCA. So she wants to say what she said is not true. And so that's going to discredit the PCA. Does Dylan's statement change the timeline? Like, I'm wondering, wouldn't she want to use her statement to prove that the timeline was later, so that it couldn't have been matching up to Brian's timeline? Or just should it be thrown out? What do you think? Should it just be thrown out, or should they use it for the timeline?
I know you're asking the chat that question, but why
Yeah,
they are trying to, I guess there's 2 things. One is I heard for the first time in this hearing that Dylan admits that she was maybe overserved that evening, and she couldn't distinguish between what she thought she was dreaming and what actually happened. So.
And she has memory problems.
And she has, I don't know about that, but
it was in the statement.
Okay, but for her, for them to bring that up, and for those, people to say that, I get it that I don't know if there's enough of what she might have said at the time to say it's Brian Kohberger. I don't think anything lands on Brian Kohberger. I think some of the stuff she said doesn't exclude Brian Kohberger, because there was the mention of the bushy eyebrows, but again, she didn't say, hey, this person was African American. That excludes Brian Kohberger. She didn't say that.
She did say height.
Yeah, but she didn't say anything that excluded. So you have to have a margin of error, right? There's a margin of error for everything. Bushy eyebrows aren't Andy Rudy eyebrows, and they're not your eyebrows, right? It's a margin of error. You have to, it's not exact. So nothing that she said was excluded. She didn't come in and say the person that was in the house only had 1 leg. You know what I mean?
No,
it has to be. Yeah. So I guess they added, my last point on this was they added her statement about the bushy eyebrows, and seeing this person, because it went with a bunch of other stuff that was in the PCA about Brian Kohberger, which included the car and the DNA.
Yeah, but it's all reliant on
Again,
getting
doesn't
starting
exclude,
from the witness.
but it's there.
So this comment's interesting. So Bill Thompson, the prosecutor, he did make a statement long ago that the PCA is irrelevant. How can it be irrelevant?
I was listening.
Like everything's based on that.
I was listening to it, and I thought he said how they got to the IGG was irrelevant.
And I think he said the whole.
Because he goes, we're not even going to bring that up. He goes, that's not even going to.
But if that's how they got to him, how can they not bring it up? Like that's your starting point. They got to him from the IGG.
Yeah, his DNA is at the scene.
But they're not going to use that. So what else are they going to
No,
use?
I mean, I'm just going to say his DNA is at the scene. We're not going to say, and this great,
Oh, because we don't want to share things that could be planted, manipulated. If you're, I hate to say it, but like if you're framing somebody, if you're setting somebody up.
This poor guy, Jesus, how did this guy get picked out of obscurity?
Then show it.
Yeah, I know.
Then
it's horrible.
show the information, and then nobody will think that.
And BT's responsible for that?
He's relying on what they're giving him. Then he should say, I'm not taking that. Do you remember who's the actor that got in trouble for the fake bullet?
Yes.
Who was that?
Jesse Smollett or something like that. Something like that.
No, it's one of the brothers, the three brothers.
Alec Baldwin?
Yes.
Oh.
There wasn't it him, you guys, that the attorney quit, the prosecuting attorney quits, and I'm not doing this because they found out that so much was tampered and changed, and she was like, I'm out, like not doing this case. So it does happen. And if it's not, show it, be transparent, and they're just not. Or explain why isn't the FBI showing everything? Why?
Is there a gag order in this case?
For the public.
Answer the question. Yes. Okay. Yes. So everything, and we've heard this in the hearings that were before the New Year turn and this one, they're saying everything that we have turned over. If what you're asking for we don't have and we can't get, we can't give. So Judge or Judge Harris, Judge or Judge Harris, whoever it is, you go to the FBI, you get them to turn over their protocols and procedures and lighting and all that stuff and hand it over to defense because they're not giving it to us. We will turn it over if we get it. They haven't given it to us. So I don't know why we keep spinning our wheels on the same thing over and over and over again.
Because it's still in that situation.
Right.
We're all going to keep saying it until the day that they present it.
And the judge is like, yeah, okay, I get it. He goes, but what's the difference? The DNA, it still points to your client.
If it is a true, accurate, fair, legal sample that wasn't magically doubled in size when it left one lab and went to another lab, and they explain how that happened, and they show all their work.
And I want to go on the record here because this is a nice revelation. So if it does, everything else seems okay with you then. He's guilty. If the FBI can produce and show the work.
To me, if they were let's say they were well, no, because then it's going to be, because I keep saying it's a movable piece. Right. So how did it get on there? So that needs further vetting out. And plus, I know Twiz was talking earlier in the chat about all the stuff with the car and all the stuff with the cell phone data. They don't have this other solid, Jeff, I know you'll chime in on Carlos's side, that is supporting. To me, they don't have other supporting evidence.
Put Twiz's 7:59 coming up. I wanna.
Oh, they changed the time. Yeah. Where is it?
Right there.
Okay.
All right. He lied when he said that.
Wait,
Mallory had files on his computer the whole time. Oh, okay. So the prosecution has all the FBI, according to Twiz. I just want to make sure this is not me saying it, but according to Twiz, if I'm got the timing of this correct and what I was saying at the time, that the FBI gave Bill Taylor all of the files. Bill Thompson, all of the files. It's on his computer, and he's personally refusing to turn it over. Or wait a minute, Mowry had it on his computer the whole time, and he didn't turn it over to Taylor Thompson. Why do I keep saying Taylor?
Because Taylor's the defense attorney.
Oh, Taylor. Didn't turn it over to Thompson. That's why. Okay, so if I'm reading that correctly,
some people think they don't even have any DNA. And how would we know?
And how could you get to Koberger? How could you get to Koberger if you have no DNA? How could you get?
We all have a lot of ideas. Some people think he was like working, like trying to figure things out that were going on in that town.
Yeah.
Maybe he was already a member of some type of law enforcement agency.
I mean, it's just crazy the amount of circumstantial things that are happening at the same time. Right. And them to land on that person is just amazing that they didn't land on, African American drug dealer or a Hispanic, cartel member, that they landed on a lily white, grad student and put his car in the area, put his eyebrows on the suspect, all these things. Like, it's crazy how they were able to find that type of person with that type of car in that type of area with, and say, oh, we're going to concoct this whole thing.
So remember when we covered the whole Howard Bloom book over some of our episodes, and oh my God, I just lost my train of thought.
Howard Bloom book.
Yeah, what were you just talking about?
How they just, created all this stuff to land on a Brian Koberger.
Oh, we learned that why was Brian going out there? Why did he choose that school? And what was his purpose for going out there? Besides, he was going out there to be a criminology doctorate student, but he was on a mission because it was a rural area, remember?
Right. Yes.
So he said he wanted to go to rural places and help them improve their
cellular or digital. Yeah.
So I just keep thinking this whole entire time, that's part of my thinking, is that he was working on things like that. He was doing some kind of digital surveilling or something. And I think almost everybody will agree that it's no surprise or hidden secret that there was a lot of illegal things going on around that, both campuses and places like that. So I don't know. That's, why him? Maybe he stumbled onto something that he wasn't supposed to.
Right.
Is one of my thoughts.
Okay. So what do you think about, before we get into more specifics, I want to keep a general thing on the hearing itself. There was a lot of, I want to suppress this stuff. I don't want this to come into, which would, if granted, which would kill the case, right? You just let him go the next day, right? I don't have enough evidence to try this person. If all this stuff's going to get suppressed, he gets to walk free. So explain, like, I guess on the Koberger side, is this what we're banking on? Like, hey, I don't feel comfortable at trial. We need to win this, this Franks hearing, because going to trial, we're in trouble. What's the thought? What's the community's thought?
I think you have a defense attorney who was defending a client and going through the steps that she needed to do to defend her client. And every step along the way, she was going, what's this? Why this? Where's this? Where's this? And every time she would ask Payne on the stand about evidence, videotapes, things like that, it was always, I don't know, I don't remember.
You said that before.
I don't know.
That's not true.
It's not true?
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So
put together a montage of every time he said that. But anyways, it's all fruit of the poisonous tree. So they took lies to make the PCA. They counted on a witness that can't be counted on. And then they wrote warrants that even when they wrote the first AT&T warrant, she was talking about this in court. She wrote the first AT&T warrant, or they did, got it back an hour later. So you have to analyze it. Like when you get it back, I'm sure you're getting like data drives of information, and they are so smart out there in Moscow that they analyzed it in 1 hour and then wrote a second one because they're like, yes, this is exactly what we needed, and we read it all in an hour, and now we're going to go after another one. So that's what she's claiming. I love when he laughs at me.
no.
But I mean, I'm just saying that's what Ann Taylor is. Those are her arguments.
So
So then everything that you're trying to go after is fruit of the poisonous tree.
right. Right. And I think during this hearing, I heard a bunch of, I think the judge was pushing back on a lot of that stuff. That it's kind of a reach, you're looking like you're trying to point over here when the true information is right in front of us.
The judge is definitely strong on the DNA. Like he made it pretty clear, like I don't think he's budging on the IgG stuff. Now the other stuff, I think he was pretty, I don't know if he reprimanded the prosecution when Jennings was up there, but he had to like tell her to like make sure you're citing specific things, because you have to really be able to back up what you're saying. But it was also the car. Are we ready to get into the car?
Yeah, let's touch on that AT&T warrant though real quick.
Because that's where the times differ. That's what I wanted to talk about. Was brought that up in the chat. Yes, go ahead.
Well, just that if I remember correctly, because we did talk about the AT&T warrant the very first time they had the open hearings, before the end of the year, and I think we talked about that, ad nauseum, where we said that the first bit of data wasn't within the time frame of what they were looking for. I think it was 2 to 3 or something like that, or 3 to 4, and it didn't have a lot of information on it, so they did a second warrant, and they were supposed to run it through this CAS system, and trying to get all this information. So I don't know if it was.
Your memory is good.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know if it's erroneous in any way. It was just the way you were citing it was hey, we did this first one and we analyzed it, and an hour later we had to write another warrant because we just went through it so fast. I think it was a pretty simple process. It was a click of a button and you could run it through this CAS system and it would tell you, and they're like, look, this isn't enough for us to map what I think we need to map for this murder, right? Didn't we have all that?
Okay, so the CAS is the computer system. So yeah, I don't know anything about that, but
Okay.
What came out of the warrant information in this hearing that we never knew before in the PCA, and we did an episode where we mapped out the whole route and we went by all the times, and they were in the PCA, it was 247, right? He was leaving his apartment and like at that intersection, I think, is at 247, and that's the whole debate. Did he go left or did he go right? Right. And now they're saying it was 254, and that's 7 whole minutes.
Yeah.
Like, so the defense is like 7 minutes is huge because now you're shrinking the amount of time to commit the crime, if you want to say it's him. And then something about 13 minutes After 2:54, like 13 minutes went by before he was seen again. And the defense was basically claiming that you saw him once on one camera in Pullman and identified the car, and then you're trying to say it's the same car on all these other clips and still photos that you have of other places, but they're not able to verify that it's the same car.
100%.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, it's only circumstantial that a white Elantra is in the area. And again, Brian Koberger has to be the most unluckiest person, that the only other person out in a 15-mile radius was him in a white Elantra over here and another person in a white Elantra over here. Like, how could you be the most unluckiest person in the world?
All right, so look at this comment. Remember how I said he took a right away from Moscow to go to the park?
Yes.
AT confirmed it. So, yeah, I want to talk about that because I thought she also said, and I wanted to understand this, that he was in Moscow, but never stationary and just driving around. Because on our episode, when we like mapped it out, and by the time it would have taken him, according to that 2:47 time, to go all the way out to the park and then all the way back to the house, I didn't think he would be able to get back in time for the crime.
But they had him at the crime scene. Well, had the white Elantra. They had a white Elantra at the crime scene 20 minutes before the crime happened.
But that camera, didn't they say in court that that camera didn't verify the car? I think there's another camera somewhere else. Is that the Ridge Road one you guys are talking about in chat that got the best identifying? And Ann Taylor also said something about the license plate, and I don't know if she meant it identified him because it didn't have a front license plate, or did they actually capture the back license plate?
I think one of the things that they were saying, which was unique to this area, is that a white Elantra without a front license plate is rare, because you must have a front license plate on your car in this area. It's a law in this area. So for there to
policy.
It's not a policy. I believe it's a law. You will get ticketed for it. But that's what made it unique, right? Is that, again, the unlucky nature of Brian Koberger. He has the one white Elantra in Pullman that doesn't have a front license plate, and the murder of these unfortunate children were the other white Elantra with no front plate as well. Gosh darn it. How could he be that unlucky that the only other car in a 50-mile radius at 4 a.m. didn't have a front plate? Do you see how, to a jury, and again, I want to be a jury member, you're going to have to do a whole heck of a lot to get me off that. Okay,
so they don't have a white Elantra at the crime scene. It was only ID'd at Ridge Road. Now, is Ridge Road another surrounding street, like going away from that area, like one of the back roads?
I'm going to look at the PCA on that, because I thought they had it.
It's a lot of pages.
No, it's right near the end, though. They say that, we see the car coming in, making a 3-point turn.
Well, a car, but it's not.
It's a white Elantra without a front plate. That's all I said. We don't have a white Elantra at the crime scene. They have it in the PCA.
But a lot of stuff that's in the PCA isn't
true.
But
we saw the video.
But the prosecutor even said
we saw the
that
video.
We
saw the video of that. Was that a manufactured video? Because I heard there was some manufactured videos. We did see, right? There were some manufactured videos, but we did see a video on that.
I think all those videos are, is that the real? Oh, maybe they were leaked.
Yeah. So you're saying, are those fake?
I don't know, you guys tell us. You dropped it off.
All right, because that's in the PCA, and that is the white Elantra was seen at the crime scene before.
But I do know that the house next door to the victim's house, a lot of us were thinking it was going to be that camera. But it's not. I guess that camera only was one of those cameras that only took like still photos every so often, and it was like a horrible.
Yeah, I hate those.
Ridge Road could identify what type, color, etc. Didn't actually say Brian's car.
Yeah, I don't think anybody Well,
Oh, it's the Linda Lane footage. Yeah, Jeff H. Yeah.
is it?
So that Linda Lane, that was the apartment camera that was leaked. So, yep.
Okay. So,
Which shows an Elantra, but not identifying, right? You got to have that.
and it didn't have a front license plate.
I don't know if you could see it good enough to tell.
Okay. Okay. No, I'm just saying, I feel for Brian Koberger if he's innocent in this because there's way too much circumstantial evidence.
That's what everybody's saying.
Yeah, I
What do you
feel
mean,
bad
too
for him.
much?
Just way too much circumstantial evidence against him. I feel bad that, if he's
Unproven circumstantial, like a white car. Like that's not, now if they're like,
the non-circumstantial evidence to this is the DNA. The circumstantial evidence is the eyebrows, the white car, the AT&T data. He's in the area. What's he doing out at 4 a.m? You know what I mean? It's too bad that he had the luck of the non-Irish to be out of his apartment at 4 a.m. when 98% of the world is sleeping. Why was he out that night? It is too bad that this is happening to him. It just makes it seem like he's good for this.
I need to see, his car with the license plate, like in front of the house, his license plate driving away at exactly the time the person probably would have been driving away, his blood on that bloody glove, his cell phone, like they said, oh, it touched their Wi-Fi or like something like that. I would need to see victims. Like there would be a lot with like hairs, his hairs in the house, victims' hairs, on his car, in his apartment, some kind of connection, like him eating every Thursday at the Mad Greek or wherever the coffee shop was that they worked, or something more concrete is what I need to see.
Yeah. All right, what else you got?
So we learned that Murphy, this is just something that came out that I wanted to ask your opinion about. Murphy the dog. So remember, Dylan said, oh, I thought Kaylee was playing with her dog upstairs, right? Well, then what was really reported, or I guess on video or audio, they have audio of the dog barking way past the time that the car drove away. So the crime's over.
Right. And
for like, I don't know, 20 more minutes or however many more minutes, the dog's still barking. Would the dog stop barking so loudly, for a simple word, if the perpetrator is gone?
So we're dog owners, or we were dog owners. Unfortunately, they've passed away, and but in the height of their career, when they were just above puppy age, we used to put them out front.
Their career,
right? We used to put.
This is where my neighbor's nickname, the witch, came in.
So we put them up front, and we had them, just enjoying a nice summer's day, laying in the grass under the trees, and the dogs barked and barked and barked to the point where the neighbor came over like wicked witch to the west to come running across the street at Kim and like saying, you gotta shut those dogs up and and you're like, okay, all right, noted. And she kept going.
Dogs would bark for no reason, or because they want to come inside.
Dogs bark. They want to come inside. They want to go outside. They want to. Hey, there was a big ruckus here 20 minutes ago. Why is everybody all of a sudden quiet? I want to keep playing or whatever.
I'm also thinking that a dog's going to keep barking at an attacker, like at an immediate threat, if the immediate threat is there. Because I also heard that he was a quiet dog, like not a barker, like ours were.
Barkers.
Yeah. No. And the no blood on the dog.
Well, the dog, apparently the door was open and
all the doors were open.
And the dog didn't go around the house at all, just stayed in his room.
that didn't happen.
That's weird.
That did not happen.
I know.
There's
That's
no
weird.
way. The only thing I can think of is that he was in a crate, and they didn't say he
They
was
didn't say
in
he
a
was
crate.
in the crate. Yeah.
And that would be misleading if he was in a crate and they're saying the door was open. That would be the only thing, or he wasn't there. Either he wasn't there or he was in a crate is the only thing, because any animal is going to go where that smell is. They're just going. They're just going to.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Yep.
was weird. What else you got?
Yep. What do you got?
Well, I guess I want to. I started listening. You know, I was listening to the hearings, and one of the things that I got from it, there was a lot of suppression, right? We want to suppress this. We want to suppress that. There was a lot of what do you call it when you cite something? So they were trying to cite certain cases, and you know, listening to Ann Taylor try to cite some of these and the judge pushing back was number one. But when the prosecution got up and they were talking about, look, you're citing something from here, and it's a totally different circumstance from what we're doing over here. And I think they called it Davis, but I don't know for sure. But when the prosecution presented it, I was like, yeah, that's apples and oranges. You know, but when Ann Taylor was doing it, it seemed like, you know, this is erroneous. You know, this is Frank's 100%. This should be suppressed. And then you hear the other side talk about it, and you're like, you know, this was totally different circumstances that you're trying to make fit for what we have going on here. And I thought it's always good to listen to both sides of an argument, because I was really having a lot of empathy, sympathy, believing in some of the defense, some of the things that they were citing. And I was like, I am very suspicious about the handrail DNA and the glove DNA. I need, you know, they need to run that through IgG. You know, they need to do as strong as they did the sheath. And I can understand why they did the sheath. But as strong as they did that, I think it's important to do the other two as well. You know, so whatever it takes to get them to run that, I think is going to be important. Plus, if Kohberger's convicted, you know, there's always going to be that opportunity for appeal if they do run that DNA, or someone does run it and it says it's somebody else. Well, this is now new evidence that could have been brought up in this trial, that he may say, I want a retrial because now we have new evidence for a new trial.
Yeah, and that's the only way.
You can do it, yeah. Because once you're convicted, it's bad. Yeah. It's hard to get it turned over.
Yeah. I mean, you and I can have these conversations like this without like choking each other.
We're close.
It is frustrating because we dig our heels in, but I understand what you're like. We ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm sure everybody can agree, you want the right guy caught and convicted. It's just I always feel like I'm more skeptical about people and things in general anyways.
You don't like the man. Just say it like it is. You don't like the man. And that's all right. That's all right.
So they have a lot of proving to do. There's a lot of coming clean that needs to happen. And I'm just not going to buy, trust me. Just trust us.
Right.
No, I'm not.
And this is where I agree with you. This is where my liberal heart maybe sometimes bleeds a little bit, you know. But yes, I agree that, you know, we should hold people accountable to the highest standard of their position, you know. And I see a lot of things that, you know, I don't necessarily 100% agree with. And I can understand that. And I can be like, look, you know, do better. You know, we jokingly say all the time, you know, do your job.
Yeah.
You know, just do your job.
You had one job.
If this is your job, do your job to the best of your ability. Don't cut corners. You know, don't try to, you know, oh, I don't know if I can solve this one, so I'm going to, you know, add a little bit of, you know, juice here and spice here. You know, don't do any of that. Just do your job.
Or I'm just going to be lazy.
Yeah.
Too much work. Sometimes there's a lot of people out there that are, I'll just do it the easy way because it's just too much work.
Yeah, exactly.
But
So any new bombshells, new info that came out that you were?
We covered all of them, but it was knowing that the doors were open.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy, and that just makes it even easier to hear everything
And
that was
contradicts
going on.
everything that we had heard.
Oh, I did want to talk about my idea when I heard. So supposedly Dylan's statement was she saw a roommate run up the steps and run back down the steps. And a lot of people were speculating that she was talking about Kaylee from upstairs. But Kaylee's already upstairs, so that would be down and up. To me, it seemed like that would be Xana. To me, I'm just like imagining. Dylan said she heard someone say someone's here, and if it was Xana, she would run upstairs to see. Oh my God, run back down. If it's that set of steps, like we don't know which set of steps. There's
who else was in the
other
basement?
floors. Bethany, she would be the only other one that could run up and run down.
Yeah.
And we're still waiting to hear her supposedly exculpatory evidence.
And if she was running up and down the steps, maybe she saw something that Dylan didn't.
Yeah. And there's been rumors out forever that she saw a naked guy running
I'm just going to ask you that.
But today, when the judge said, like, when he said, oh, you know, you could take your clothes off and put them in a bag and leave it outside, I'm like, oh no, don't make somebody naked. That goes with the running naked man theory.
Yeah. Wow.
So let's see Jeff's comment here. Oh, Anne first misspoke. Oh, and then restarted. She first said upstairs, downstairs, and then I think because I listened to it a few times, and I think if the correct way was downstairs.
Oh, we talked about the DoorDash.
Oh wait, upstairs. She first said downstairs, then upstairs, and then she said upstairs, then downstairs.
And we did talk about the DoorDash. It could have been the DoorDash, and I think you said that. Well, did anybody pick up the DoorDash? Was the DoorDash inside? Did they even get it?
Yeah, Carlos was asking me. It could have been just them running down to get the DoorDash.
Yeah.
And I said, well, we don't even know that it was handed off, or we don't know any of that. You know?
Until the DoorDash person gets on the stand to say, I physically handed it to a person. We don't know that, right? Yes. So, okay. Unless somebody has heard different, you know, and, you know, they know the DoorDash driver and they said, hey, I handed it to so-and-so. But
that would make sense too, because it would be Xana going downstairs and then back up to go get to the front door if that was the case.
Yeah.
So there's some options for that.
Yeah, but other than that, we did. Do we want to talk about the book
coming up?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so we did When the Night Comes Falling by
Howard Bloom.
And we did, I think, 5 episodes of that.
Yeah, when we say we did it, we're not reading it to you.
Yeah.
We read it. We actually listen to it on Audible because we can listen to it more quickly. And then we just talk about it.
Yeah.
Share what was in it, give our opinions.
Right. And so there was another book, While Idaho Slept, that I listened to about months ago. Yeah, maybe 3 or 4 months ago. You just started listening to it. It is the reason I'm interested in this one because this book was put out probably first and was right at the time. I think all the information was collected right at the time of the crime.
Yeah.
And for me, going, you know, because we went through a lot of information and all this stuff and minutia since, it was good to get that fresh look back at the beginning of what people were thinking. Who are the people involved? You know, we haven't heard some names in a while, you know, like the bartender, the people at the grub truck, you know, these are names that we no longer even talk about. And to hear them talk about how they were playing such a big role in what happened that night, I'm curious you know, as I was listening to the book and as we listened to it together, we may want to go back and get some of your thoughts about who's the guy that's the next door neighbor that you always.
Enon.
Yeah,
I
Enon.
can't wait. I keep saying I want to do an episode on him just because it's great content.
Yeah.
Funny content.
But I think it's good for us to, I think we want to go through the book, you know, maybe do a 3 or 4 parter of the book as well, kind of bring up some of these names and see, like, what are they doing now? Are they involved in this case in any way? Was it a red herring at the beginning, you know, or is it something we forgot about and we should be considering today? So,
yes, that's one of our projects that we're going to be doing some videos on, and it's not just going to be just focused on the book. I want to use the book as a tool to dive into discussions and revisit some of these topics, like the grub truck and
yes,
the other people, like Carlos said. So that's one of the things we're going to be making some videos about, and probably start that next.
excellent. All right.
We had quite a handful of people in here. I was so happy. I've been watching the chat. I'm going to say hi to Moonvale, Swamp Rose, Jeff, your buddy Jeff. Hi, Jeff. American Princess. I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. Mark and Betty. Thanks for hanging out with us, you guys. David Bird. Everybody's a familiar name in here. Awesome. So we're going to end this, and I'll be seeing you in other chats. And we'll see you back for our next video.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.